1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com. If you remember last year, we had Garrett Whitley. We were all over his coverage going into the Major League Baseball draft, talking to seemingly every Major League Baseball draft expert there was. Well, guess what? We get to do it all again this year about Shenendehowa star Ian Anderson, and we bring in now Nathan Rohde, National Supervisor for the Prep Baseball Report. Nathan, when we talk about Ian Anderson, we talk about him as a first-round potential pick. What makes him in that conversation?
Well, he's, when you draw up a pitching prospect, he's the end result. He's tall, he's lean, he's got projection left, so, he's got room in that frame to fill out and get stronger. But then when it comes down to it, when he gets on the mound, he's got really good stuff. He's got a fastball in the low 90s, reaches the mid-90s. He's got good feel for a breaking ball, that's shown that it can be a swing and miss pitch and get hitters out, now. And then he's got feel for a changeup. There's not a lot of high schoolers that are going to go out there, and show good feel for a changeup right away. It's one of those pitches that they usually don't need at that level because they're doing hitters a favor. But he shows feel for it, which means he's advanced, for his age.
You tried to come up and see Ian pitch recently, and because of the weather we've had in the Northeast, it's just been cold, it's been rainy. It actually got rained out the day you were supposed to see him. Does the fact that the bad weather this year, does that hurt his draftability because teams just haven't seen him that much?
It might a little bit, just in the sense that, the teams being able to see him. But as long as, he still gets in, a couple starts between now and the draft, I don't think it's going to be detrimental, because he still obviously had a very good run last summer and fall, pitching with Team USA, running around on the showcase circuit. And that really carries a lot more weight for me because that's when he's facing the best hitters in the country. And so the results we see from that are a lot more telling, at least in my opinion. If he comes out in the spring and, the bad weather, and, misses some starts because of that, it's not ideal. But in the end, he'll get enough in before the draft for guys to really get in their final evaluations and make a final decision.
He's thrown less than 10 innings this year already, part due to the weather and part due to a side injury that he had. Does that side injury make him any less draftable?
With his case specifically, I don't think so. Obviously, if he had missed more time, and if that side injury had lingered longer, and we were still talking about him trying to make a start, and it's late May, then I would see it having an effect. But the fact that he's been back now, he's made a start, he showed good stuff in that start, and you would think moving forward that he's on track to make his once a week appearance. I don't think it would have a huge effect because guys will be like, okay, it looks like it was a minor thing. He worked through it. He's come back. He's showing that he's strong, and he's showing the stuff that we expect out of him. Okay, no big deal. Now, if it had lingered longer, like I said, into late May, then that probably would have scared some teams off a little bit. But I think with his case specifically, where he's working at now, I don't think it's going to be a huge factor.
Nathan Rohde, Prep Baseball Report, National Supervisor with us, 1045 The Team and 1045theteam.com. I've seen Ian Anderson earlier on some sites, earlier this season, pegged in a mock draft at number 11 to the White Sox. I saw him more recently at number 18 to the Yankees. What do you think the range that Ian Anderson could fall in? What's the best and worst case scenarios?
I think best case scenario is that he falls into that 10 to 15 range. You could make a case for him being a top 10 pick just because of his stuff and, how guys have liked him. I think really what might push him out of that is simply the progress that some other players have made around the country. There have been a lot of new names that have, gained some traction this spring and have really stood out. So it's not necessarily him slipping, it's others kind of coming forward and making a rise. But, best case scenario, I can see up into that 10 to 15 range. But then, worst case scenario, I'd be very surprised if he gets out of the first round, just because of the total package that we're talking about with him.
How often do you see this debate come about? He's got the offer to Vanderbilt, committed to one of the best baseball schools in the country, but also one of the best academic schools in the country. I mean, how often do you see kids wrestle with this decision? Because it's easy for me to sit back and say, hey, it's going to be anywhere between $1 and $3 million. I would take it no matter what. But how often do you see kids have to go with that dilemma of go pro or go to college?
Well, we see it every year. I mean, every year there's a few guys that we talk about, with this scenario where they have, everybody has a good option that we're talking about. Go to college, in the Division I program, or go pro. But there are a lot of guys that we talk about specifically where they, really have that decision to make. And Ian Anderson is certainly in that boat. Now, being a first rounder, I think it's a pretty easy decision to kind of lean toward the pro side, just because of the money that you're talking about and the success rate of high school first rounders. When you get lower than that, obviously, the decision becomes a little bit more of a gray area, and the waters are a little more murky. But again, it comes down to each individual kid. Last year we had a kid in Tennessee. His name was Donnie Everett. Had first round stuff, and there was talks of him going in the first round. But when it came down to it, scouts determined that they weren't sure if he was signable and if the money was going to be enough. So he ended up dropping, and he's at Vanderbilt now, and likely to have a good career there and be talked about again in a couple of years. There's no reason that Ian Anderson would be any different, but I don't have any evidence right now that would speak to him being in that category. But again, we're a month away, and a lot can happen, and a lot can be determined between now and then.
Nathan, I played at Shenandoah High School where Ian Anderson plays. I was a Division III pitcher. I threw 78 to 82 miles an hour. I played community baseball my whole way up. I asked this question. I think I'm afraid of the answer. The community baseball versus the travel showcase circuit, how big a separator is it? Like, if Ian Anderson just played at Shenandoah High School and played community travel baseball all summer, would he be getting as much publicity as he is now?
I can certainly see the argument for that he wouldn't get as much publicity. But in the end, what matters is the result and the career that he has. And I am a huge believer in the adage that is, if you're good, they'll find you. So the publicity that he gets now, from people like me or, MLB.com, Baseball America, that's not going to dictate his career. And in the end, that's what matters. And if you're good enough, you're gonna get your chances and you're gonna get your shot. So he may not get as much publicity if that were the case, but at the same time, if he has that stuff, somebody's going to see him, and he's going to get his chance at proving himself in pro ball, whether it's now or after 3 years, at college.
I was scared for that answer, but now you can just keep preaching to the choir, because I've long been the big community baseball fan and a proponent of the same thing. If you're good enough, they will find you. So that made me feel good to hear you say that.
Well, I'm glad I can ease your mind a little bit.
Nathan Rohde, Prep Baseball Report National Supervisor, talking about Ian Anderson. But Nathan, Ian Anderson, not the only draft prospect we have potentially out of the Capital Region. Union College Division III left-handed pitcher standout Jake Fishman, a guy who I know you've heard of because he's on the midseason Golden Spikes Award watch list. I'll just ask you this. How good, how dominant must you have to be at Division III to be getting draft looks, especially Fishman's only a junior?
You would think you certainly have to be dominant, and I'm not going to stand here and say, and hem and haw say, well, you don't have to be, but the chances are that if you have the stuff that's draftable, you're going to be dominant. And it's one of those things where it's for someone to get out there and, go and see a Division III pitcher, something's going to have to catch their eye. And somebody can come along and tell you what stuff he's got, but if he looks at the numbers and it's like, all right, well, maybe I'll go see this guy today, and the numbers don't add up to match, then it's going to be harder to get looks. So you certainly do have to be dominant in one aspect. But again, if somebody wants to do their due diligence and try to beat the other guy, then you give someone a chance if you hear the stuff is good enough.
Well, Fishman, 49 innings pitched for Union, a .37 ERA, 6-0, has allowed just 2 earned runs in those 49 innings. Sounds draftable to me, Nathan.
Are those numbers good?
Those numbers sound fairly good.
Yeah, it definitely is definitely somebody worth looking at. And again, we got 40 rounds, so there's always a chance. So it's certainly a guy to keep an eye on and not just brush off simply because he is in Division III.
Nathan Rohde, Prep Baseball Report National Supervisor. We appreciate the time as always.
As always, man. Thanks for having me, and happy to do it.